You ever meet someone who makes your skin crawl the second they open their mouth? That's how it was with her. The woman who lived at the corner of Sycamore Street and Elm Lane. Blonde bob, oversized sunglasses, the kind of lady who walks around like she's personally offended by the existence of other people, especially people who didn't look like her. You know the type. We called her Karen. Not to her face, obviously, but to the rest of the neighborhood. Yeah, Karen. The OG Karen. And look, I don't throw that word around lightly. But if anyone ever earned it, it was her. It all started when the Johnsons moved in. Nice family. Husband, wife, 2 kids. They were the first black family to move into our neighborhood, which, if I'm being honest, was overdue. The rest of US didn't care. They were polite, friendly, kept their yard nice. Their little boy even helped Ms. Downey carry her groceries once. Real good folks. But Karen, she wasn't having it. She called the HOA 3 times the first week they moved in. First, it was about their garbage bins being too visible. Then, she claimed their car was too loud. The third time, she said their lawn decorations were gang-affiliated. Yeah, lawn gnomes. Gang-affiliated. But that wasn't even the worst of it. One morning, around 7 a.m., we all woke up to shouting. Loud, shrill, angry shouting. I stepped outside in my robe, coffee in hand, and there she was, Karen, standing in the Johnsons' driveway, screaming at Mr. Johnson like she'd caught him stealing her Amazon packages. You people don't belong here, she yelled. I wish I was making that up. Mr. Johnson stood there, calm as ever, just shaking his head. He wasn't about to lose his cool in front of his kids. But you could see it in his eyes. He was pissed. Rightfully so. I walked over, trying to defuse it. Karen, I said, maybe you should head home. It's early. She turned on me like I just slapped her. Don't you start defending them. I know what I saw. What did she see? A black man unloading groceries from his own car. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just some nosy neighbor with too much time on her hands. This woman genuinely believed she was protecting the neighborhood from a family trying to live their lives. The cops showed up 10 minutes later. She called them. Said Mr. Johnson threatened her. Body cams proved otherwise. He hadn't even raised his voice. But that didn't stop Karen from filing a complaint. And even that wasn't the end. Because just a few days later, the Johnson security camera caught something that changed everything. Late at night, around 2:12 a.m., someone walked up to their front porch. A hooded figure, gloves on, holding a can of spray paint. The next morning, the Johnsons' garage door had one word scrawled across it in bright red letters. Get out. Into the camera. It caught the whole thing. The way the figure moved. The way they held the can. The way they limped, just a little, like their left knee was stiff. It was grainy. Hard to make out a face. But the cops watched it over and over. And then I heard it. The moment that changed everything. The detective leaned in and muttered, That limp, doesn't that look like Karen? That was just the beginning. The neighborhood changed after that night. People were on edge. Not because of the Johnsons. They were still friendly, still polite, still mowing their lawn every Sunday like clockwork, but because of that one word spray painted across their garage. Get out. It wasn't just vandalism. It was a message. An ugly one. And the fact that the only person in the neighborhood with a known grudge against them had a matching limp? Well, people started whispering. Not just behind Karen's back either. That week, I saw Mr. Patel from across the street, quiet guy, keeps to himself, march up to Karen's house and ask if she knew anything about the graffiti. She slammed the door in his face. Then came the HOA meeting. Now, usually those things are a boring mess. Someone complains about someone else's mailbox being the wrong color. Someone else whines about barking dogs. But this meeting, oh, it was packed. Karen showed up, strutting in like she hadn't just called the cops on a family for existing. And when the HOA president, Ms. Bellamy, brought up the security footage, Karen crossed her arms and gave that smug little half-smile of hers. I don't know what you're implying, she said. I was home all night. Bellamy blinked. The footage says otherwise. Karen scoffed. Footage? From what? A doorbell camera? Please. Those things are worthless. But they weren't. Because just after the meeting, Mr. Johnson uploaded a clearer version of the video to the neighborhood forum. Turns out the camera had night vision and higher resolution than we thought. You couldn't see a face, but you could see the hoodie, a light gray with a distinctive pink logo on the back. And guess who was seen wearing that same hoodie just the day before at the grocery store? You guessed it, Karen. Someone even dug up a photo from the community Facebook page. Karen holding a tiny dog in one arm, wearing that exact hoodie. Still, that wasn't enough for the cops. Circumstantial, they said. No face, no fingerprints, no can of spray paint recovered. But the Johnsons, they weren't done. Not even close. A week later, I got a knock on my door. It was Mr. Johnson holding a flash drive. "Hey," he said, "you got a pretty good view of the street from your window cams, right?" I nodded. "Yeah, why?" He handed me the drive. "Mind checking the night of the graffiti?" Between 2 o'clock and 2:30 a.m. Now, I hadn't even thought to look, but I told him I'd check. That night, I reviewed the footage, and my stomach dropped. There she was, Karen, limp and all, walking down the sidewalk, glancing around like a teenager breaking curfew, wearing that hoodie, holding something in her hand. She walked past my house, and a minute later came back empty-handed. I couldn't tell what she was holding, but she was out alone at 2:12 a.m., the exact time the graffiti was sprayed. I gave the footage to the Johnsons. They took it to the cops. Still a no arrest, no charges, no apology. But that's when something weird started happening. Karen vanished. Her car didn't move. Her blinds stayed closed. For a whole week, no one saw her step outside. Then, one night, I was taking out the trash around midnight. I saw lights flickering in her living room. Like a TV was on, but the windows were covered. Something about it felt off. The next morning, the Johnsons woke up to something even worse. Their mailbox had been smashed to pieces, completely obliterated. Baseball bat, maybe. Who knows? But this time, the camera did catch a face. And it wasn't Karen. It was someone else. A teenage boy. Skinny white, hoodie pulled low, but not enough to hide his face completely. He looked scared, nervous, like he didn't want to be doing what he was doing. And here's the part that shook me. He walked away from the scene and straight into Karen's house. You ever get that gut feeling that something just isn't right? That was all of us after the mailbox incident. After the spray paint, the complaints, the screaming, after all of that, we thought it couldn't get worse. But now, there was a kid involved. A scared-looking teenage boy caught on camera destroying the Johnsons' mailbox, then ducking straight into Karen's house like he lived there. Only none of us had ever seen him before. Not once. And we know our neighborhood. We notice everything. Birthdays, dogs, new Amazon drivers, we keep track. So when someone new shows up, especially someone that bold, we talk. That morning, the neighborhood group chat exploded. Who's the kid? Why'd he go into Karen's house? Is he her nephew or something? Anyone seen him before? And then out of nowhere, Mrs. Kim, the lady who lives 2 houses down from Karen, who mostly keeps to herself, dropped a bomb. She said she'd heard Karen talking to someone through the wall. 4 weeks now. At night, a guy's voice. Younger. And it wasn't just conversation. It was arguing, yelling, crying, slamming doors. Mrs. Kim thought maybe Karen had a boyfriend. Or a son. A son? Nobody knew Karen had kids. She never mentioned one. No photos, no visits, no talk of parenting. She once said kids were a drain on the economy. But now, people started to wonder. So I did something I probably shouldn't have. I knocked on her door. Now listen, I wasn't trying to confront her. I wasn't even thinking straight. I just wanted to see something. Hear something. Confirm she was alive in there. But when I knocked, nothing. No footsteps. No creaking floorboards. Just silence. I knocked again. Waited. Still nothing. Just as I was about to turn and leave, I heard something. A whisper. Not from Karen. From inside. From the second floor window. It was faint, like someone mouthing a word they weren't supposed to say. Help. I froze. I looked up, but the window was covered in thick curtains. No movement. No face. Just that word. One time, quiet and desperate, I didn't tell anyone at first. I didn't want to seem paranoid. But it haunted me. And then 3 days later, Mr. Johnson showed up at my door again. Same serious face. Same flash drive. He said the camera caught the boy again. This time sneaking into their backyard. He didn't break anything. Didn't vandalize. He just stood there for 10 minutes, staring at the house. Then he turned and left. Like he was scouting it. I asked, did he go back to Karen's place? He shook his head. This time, he went the other direction. Vanished. That's when Mr. Johnson told me something else. He'd done a reverse image search using a still from the footage. The kid's blurry face. It wasn't perfect, but it led somewhere. A missing persons database. Lucas M. Delaney, age 17. Missing for 6 months. Last seen 2 towns over. And guess who'd lived in that town up until 7 months ago? Karen. That name? Karen wasn't even her real name. Her legal name was Cynthia Delaney, Lucas Delaney's mother. The internet didn't say much, just that she moved away following personal hardship. But there were whispers. Old Reddit threads, neighborhood pages, small-town gossip. People said she'd pulled Lucas out of school suddenly. Said he'd gotten in trouble. Started acting out. Got suspended. Then poof, gone. No charges, no press, just a mom and son who vanished from one life and started another. Until Lucas ended up on our street, smashing mailboxes and mouthing the word help through a curtain. Now this wasn't just about racism or Karen being a nightmare neighbor. This was something way darker. Something was going on inside that house. Something not even the cops were prepared for. And the next time Lucas showed up, he brought something with him. Something that would break this story wide open and put everyone in danger. You ever feel like your whole world's tilting sideways? That's how it felt when Mr. Johnson knocked on my door again, this time pale and holding something in his shaking hands. It wasn't a flash drive. It was a notebook. Well, worn. The cover half torn. On the front, scribbled in red pen. L. Delaney, private. He found it behind his shed. Said it was stuffed into a plastic bag, hidden under a pile of mulch. Probably dropped during one of Lucas's late-night visits. Read it, he said. So I did. And when I read, I still get chills thinking about it. The first few pages were just scribbles. Angry, messy rants. Stuff like, I hate her. She says they're watching. I don't want to be here anymore. She locks the door at night. I don't have a key. I think she put something in my food. Page after page, Lucas poured his fear into that notebook. But it wasn't just complaints. It was a timeline. A journal of everything he'd been through since they moved to our street. He wrote about being pulled out of school. About how Karen, Cynthia, told him the government was trying to reprogram kids like him. How she made him stay inside for weeks at a time. No phone. No internet. No visitors. He wasn't allowed outside unless it was after midnight, and only then if she watched. He wasn't living there. He was trapped. And then came the page that hit hardest. She says the neighbors are part of the plan, especially the black family. She says they were sent here to test us. And just like that, everything snapped into place. The complaints, the harassment, graffiti, the mailbox. This wasn't just a racist woman lashing out. This was a woman spiraling, dragging her own son into a delusion that grew more violent by the day. And Lucas? He was trying to escape. That's why he kept coming back. Why he stood in the Johnsons' backyard. Why he mouthed help from behind a curtain. He was crying out the only way he knew how. I told Mr. Johnson we had to act. We couldn't wait anymore. He nodded. I already did. Turns out he handed the notebook over to the police an hour earlier. Showed them the camera footage, the Facebook photos, everything. And for once, they listened. They didn't go in guns blazing. They sent a social worker, someone trained in mental health crises. A squad car followed, parked discreetly down the street. We watched from behind blinds and half-open doors, hearts pounding. Karen didn't answer the door at first. But after 10 minutes, she cracked it open just wide enough for them to slip in. And then silence. 5 minutes. 10. 15. Then suddenly, the front door slammed open, and we saw her, Karen, being let out in handcuffs, screaming like a banshee. You're all part of it. All of you. The whole neighborhood froze. I'll never forget her face. Twisted, red, unrecognizable. She looked like someone who hadn't slept in days. Maybe weeks. Her hands were shaking. Her eyes darted around like she was still seeing enemies in every shadow. And behind her came Lucas. Thin, pale, shaky, but free. Wrapped in a blanket, surrounded by medics, eyes adjusting to daylight like he hadn't seen it in weeks. The cops found a hidden room in the basement. A mattress on the floor. Bucket in the corner. No windows. No lights. He'd been kept there. Locked in. We were all in shock. And yet somehow it wasn't over. Because just as the police were packing up and we thought it was done, Lucas said one more thing. He said, there's a second notebook. One he hid in the house. One with a real reason Karen lost it. So here we are. The woman on Sycamore Street was in police custody. Her son, Lucas, was safe, physically at least. The house was sealed. The notebook handed over. But there was still one thing hanging over us like a storm that hadn't passed. The second notebook. According to Lucas, it held everything. Not just what happened, but why. See, Karen Cynthia wasn't just a racist neighbor with control issues. She wasn't just a mother gone off the rails. She was obsessed with something. Lucas said she called it the clean slate, and that's where it got dark. The police searched the house top to bottom. It wasn't in the basement or the attic. Not in her room. Not even in the hidden closet behind the hallway mirror. They almost gave up, until Lucas pointed to the floor vent in the living room. And inside it, wrapped in a Ziploc bag, sealed with duct tape, they found it. Notebook number 2. This one was different. Not a journal. A manifesto. And no, I don't use that word lightly. It was filled with long rants, dates, plans, clippings from conspiracy blogs, photos of neighbors labeled with things like aligned or infected. She believed the government had launched a suburban experiment to integrate communities, but not for equality, for control. She believed that certain families, like the Johnsons, were plants, sent to spy, to manipulate, to replace. She believed Lucas was the key to resisting it. Here's a quote I'll never forget. Lucas will be clean. He will resist their lies. He will not break like the others. If I must lock him away to protect him, I will. Someday, he'll understand. Someday, they'll all see I was right. It wasn't racism for the sake of hate. It was racism dressed as paranoia. Delusion, wrapped in conspiracy, soaked in control. But her obsession didn't stop at ideas. Inside the notebook was also a list. Names, addresses, dates. One of them was the Johnsons. Circled, with a note next to it. Final test. The night of the graffiti. That wasn't a random outburst. That was the start. She was building towards something. Some kind of escalation. And the smashed mailbox? That wasn't Lucas going rogue. That was her sending him. Conditioning him. Training him to believe these innocent people were a threat. And here's the part that'll stick with me forever. Lucas wrote a final entry in his own words. After everything came out, they let him say his piece in the official report. It read, I thought I hated her, but I think she was sick and scared. And I was scared too. I didn't want to hurt anyone. I didn't even know why I was doing what I was doing. But something in me kept thinking, maybe if I did what she asked, maybe she'd finally stop being afraid. Maybe she'd finally see me again. Not as a soldier. Not as a key. Just her kid. There wasn't a dry eye in that room when the officers read it aloud. So what happened after? Karen Cynthia was transferred to a psychiatric facility. Official diagnosis, severe delusional disorder with paranoid features. She's not facing prison, but she's not walking free either. Lucas was placed with extended family, his aunt, a few hours away. He started therapy. Slowly, word is he's adjusting. The Johnsons, they stayed. They almost left. Almost sold the house and moved on. But one day, Mrs. Johnson told me something I'll never forget. We're not leaving because of hate, she said. We're staying because of hope. We saw what this place became when people stood up. We're not giving that up. And you know what? The neighborhood changed after that. Really changed. People talk more. Watch out for each other. We're not just neighbors anymore. We're a community. But sometimes I still walk past that corner house on Sycamore Street. The blinds are drawn. The lawn's overgrown. The air feels heavy. A reminder that monsters don't always look like monsters. Sometimes they look like someone waving from their porch with a forced smile. Sometimes they live right next door.